Welcome to Culture Gone Bad, a podcast hosted by Alexandra Saushkina
and Drupi Daura. Join us for a seductive spectacle of cruelties and paradoxes in current events, fashion tragedies, and cultural symbolism.
This show will leave you with lots of ideas, thoughts, contradictions, and self reflection, which are so much needed in this cruel and mad world. Culture Gone Bad is back and it's 2024. A new year is not looking particularly happy, which we are quite excited about. And the listeners who are watching us will be very pleased to see that we are together. And I'm next to hot-blooded and half-naked Juppie by my side, which brings a lot of joy to end of my January. Right. So Juppie, tell me, did you watch Saltburn?
Yes, didn't I tell you to watch it? Oh, okay, yeah.
This is
So at least I watched it before, yeah.
No, this is the first traumatic experience you kind of exposed me to since I've been back to the western part of the world.
Oh yeah, because you were in Japan, so I exposed you to you hit the ground of the West very hard with Saltburn.
Yeah, I would say I went below, below the ground.
So I really wanted you to see it. What were your thoughts? Tell me. Let's unpack it.
Oh, my thoughts are my eyes are still hurting badly. Like my eyes started hurting the moment I got on a British Airways plane, but yeah, it's a real unique experience. But well, I thought it was ridiculously ugly and boring film, which did with sort of a modern left-wing criticism of anyone who has money and anyone who achieved something, and juxtaposed that with, the criticism of wealth and the loathing West has developed over recent years. And I thought, aesthetically wise, the film was not very beautiful. I thought, so here we are presented a narrative of two social classes being connected through Oxford University, surprisingly. And I realized by the end of this film what I don't want to be in anyone's place. I'd rather be myself, because I think this movie presents us aristocracy, which I don't know, usually traditionally somehow supposed to be desirable or aspirational, as quite, probably people full of themselves and having very little awareness, who are being tricked by working class parasite who finds his way through their bedrooms and their minds and takes it all away from them. But who is to blame? I think no one is morally good in this film, and everyone is awfully disgusting. That's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think there were good things in the movie. The actors are very good. I agree with you. I wouldn't say the movie was ugly, but I would say that the ugly, I mean aesthetically, the movie was pretty ugly, but I mean the aesthetic, the photography of the movie is universally regarded as beautiful. I think beauty is the wrong word for it. It's curated, not beautiful, but we are so not used to curated things anymore that it felt beautiful to some people. And for instance, the sense that I got from the aesthetic curation of the movie is the same. You know that series that you wanted me to watch? The one with the idol. Yeah, the idol. I had the same sense of curation of the frame, but a total neglect of the story part. And the problem with Saltburn is that, so first of all, Saltburn was not new in the sense that it's kind of, it condenses Evelyn Waugh, that Brideshead Revisited. It's even quoted in the movie, but also Ripley by Patricia Highsmith and Anthony Minghella, but that was a beautiful movie. And a little bit of Theorema by Pasolini, where the guest arrives in a house and seduces everyone. Except in Theorema, the guest is always a metaphor, whereas here the guest is a living person. I agree with you. It was a movie about social envy. This reveals a deep characteristic of the British middle classes, that they would all like to be upper classes. This is not the left. The movie is received by progressive as a left movie. There is nothing left here. The left is about the destruction of the upper class, not the appropriation of the upper class. But this is almost like, I want to be you. It's not like I think you are wrong and therefore let's create an equal society. That's I want to be you and I'll kill you and I'll take your place and I'll be the aristocracy tomorrow, even though with zero merits and zero moral good. And it's true, nobody is morally good in this movie, but there is a problem. So the middle class guy, he's not morally good, he's morally bad, and the aristocracy is also morally bad, and they need the aristocracy to be morally bad, because otherwise we would side with them, we would feel sorry for them. But for some weird reasons, we are so fucked up in our society that we side with the middle class boy who is a psychopath, full of empty of morals and somehow justified to do what he does. So I think it's really a badly held together movie. And my problem with the narrative of the movie, the story of the movie, is that the scenes are very badly connected. I don't think it was boring. I think it was badly stitched together. I think it's a movie butchered in the editing room. It couldn't possibly have been so badly written. I think it was ruined in the editing room. They shot too many scenes and they didn't know how to keep them together, and everything became very fragmentary. So it's ultimately an ugly movie, cinematically speaking, and curated from a photographic point of view, curated but not beautiful from a cinematic point of view. Yeah. So essentially, I kind of agree with you, but it's not the first movie that we see with this characteristic of social envy. No.
Well, I mean, I just want to, maybe express what I mean by, I think there's some leftism in it, because I think this is exactly the problem. Left-wing ideology sells utopia which always fails. And I think with this guy from working class eventually taking over the aristocratic mansion, they exactly achieve in a bad way what left achieve. They sort of just take over the ownership, but we're not really given the social equality, which we always promise, because someone will always have a bad deal, right? After all, the North Korean sister, she has all the Valentina designs. It is like, on the idea of equality, someone will always will be elite. It's just like the elite, like you said, it's not based on merit, it's just the
No.
allocation.
Yeah, I think what I mean by there is no left is obviously the realization is disastrous, like every lefty power is disastrous in its actualization. But at least in the left, even though it ends up in disaster, there is a utopia, and the utopia is equality for everyone. In this movie, the guy doesn't have any dream of equality for everyone. He wants it for himself. He's extremely selfish. He's so selfish that he's got no idea of no community in this guy. He feels no love. Sex is used only to seduce others for his own good, and even his family is not a family. It rejects he is the ultimate product of Western contemporary individualism, an individualism atomized to the level of an individual, where with nothing around, not even a family. There is no acknowledgement of something that is more than one in the movie. In this sense, the movie is not lefty, is the dystopia of capitalism, if anything.
This is very interesting point, but that's the thing. I don't think socialism or communism really had this social unity and distribution of goods
Of course.
to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone always won. Like Soviet Union, how it functioned. If you knew someone, you get a better deal. And you always had people who were elite, even in this society. And I think this perversed elitism. I think communism elitist is more perverse than capitalist elitism, because at least in capitalism rules are more black and white, whereas in communism they are very intricate and subversive. And for me, this one has this strong vibe, like let's just take away everything from rich people and not share it with anyone else. But difficult to say about the editing room, like, how we cut the film, because I'm not expert as you are. But I just wanted to see something pretty since I got back to West. I'm really dying to see something beautiful, something, and I'm really not seeing it anywhere, except maybe for fashion. And in recent fashion collections, not the ready to wear, but couture, I felt like fashion is actually getting to this extreme expression of couture, which we often recognized it for. What do you reckon?
So yeah, I indeed I think you were talking about the actualized socialism's experiences, but I was talking about the fact that they start from an ideal. There is no question that that idea always ends up, as you said, in a lefty elitism, which is even worse than the capitalistic elitism, because at least capitalism gives everyone the possibility, even promises everyone the possibility of achieving some higher standard. Going, yeah. But in the lefty elitism, there is this fake narrative of togetherness and everything better for everyone. But there is not even the dream in the movie. That's what I'm saying. At least in Soviet Union, the actualization was terrible, but at least they started with the dream, which was betrayed. But they had the dream initially. Here, there is no realization, but equally there is no dream.
Also talented Mr. Ripley or Theorema. I did watch some bits of it. There's some aesthetic beauty. There's something like, in Theorema, at least the guest is sexy, he is eroticized. There's nothing sexy about this guy.
In Theorema, the guest is mysterious in Theorema.
This is a mystery I'm missing in our modern society. Where are all the mysterious people? Jupiter, like
Where are?
where are
Besides
we?
us.
Besides us, like where are you guys? Like message us, DM us, send us some pictures.
Send nudes, especially send many nudes.
We want to see the scale, and please, guys, like get in touch. We want to meet some mysterious people because we are not impressed.
Okay, and this leads me indeed, speaking about mystery, to the only mystery in the West that we could see, which is some couture shows. I say some because the majority were pretty dull. We are still exiting this stillness. And I remember the last time we talked about it, I mentioned that the fashion was looking for. I listened to our latest podcast because I remember that we touched on that, on the minimalism, and I remember that I said something like, "This type of minimalism is boring. We miss an exciting minimalism. This is just frumpiness. It doesn't bridge the chasm between frumpiness and minimalism." That was what I said. And then these couture shows made me think that maybe, just maybe, the way forward is not minimalism, it's maximalism all over again, because Martin Margiela with Galliano made me dream, made us dream. Was it new? No, it was the same. It felt new, but it was not new. It was the same Galliano that we came to love 20 years ago, but it was masterfully made with those techniques that only Galliano can use, and it was masterfully staged, and the bodies were brought to an extreme of hourglass, and that's something that it was really a statement, and it was not just a statement in terms of beauty and politics, but just a statement in terms of what couture should be, craftsmanship. What do you think about Galliano?
It reminds me what he used to do for Dior in 90s and 2000s, especially for couture. But those, for me, this is exactly the opposite of banal and boring fashion we see in Balenciaga and Gucci, which are like literally doing campaigns, photographing people like we're about to land an airplane, right? It's very, very banal, very everyday fashion of going and getting your coffee. This is completely opposite. And I think this is also connected to that financial depression and austerity. People are looking for escapism to dream, like we were looking to Hollywood films after the Great Depression in 30s. And we probably need it. It's just like two sort of areas. On one hand, you have extreme austerity. On another end, you have extreme drama, theatrical performance, and overtly expressive fashion, which is needed. It's not something you can really wear, but it's something which can give you an idea why we all should be interested in fashion, why fashion matters. Because Balenciaga, as much as it's funny and ironic, I think it doesn't really give us the value of fashion. And value of fashion is in sophistication, is in a taste, in aesthetic. And Margiela connects it much closely.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. You made me think of an element. You say, rightly, I think. So you say that the other brands are led by boredom and austerity. And I think there is another element to this that is not of this austerity element that you mentioned. That is not this austerity so much as it is the fear that conglomerates have to propose new ideas because it's risky. Every new idea that you propose needs to be tested in the market and risks to fail, and fashion has to be sold. If fashion doesn't sell, it's not a punch in your stomach, it fails. And everyone is scared of taking a direction that may not be understood by the public. And that, I think, is the reason why fashion is so dull nowadays. Pret-a-porter is so dull. But couture has an advantage. Couture does not need to sell at the unit level because every piece is unique and is collected by people. So it can try new languages because it's free from the pressure of conglomerates trying to sell more than the year before. So I think the real changes often come from couture because they've got the luxury of experimentation that Pret-a-porter lacks because they have to answer to sale data. Yeah, I think. Did you want to say something about this? Otherwise, I'll ask you a question. Right, because I think that couture took two different directions this term. Yeah, well, I'm thinking in academic term, this season. One is the maximalism of Galliano, which I think we will hear about over the next seasons as well. But the other element, in the past, 20-year cycle, the past comes back every time. But the other thing that I noticed is that there was a type of minimalism in shapes, not minimalism in construction, that really stood out, which was Azedine Alaya by Peter Moulier. And I think that was very well accomplished, very simple shapes, but the craftsmanship was so refined and so the opposite really of simplicity. But it looked simple, but it was not simple. So I wanted to know what's your take on Alaya if you watched it.
For me, when I saw it, now I remember, it gave me a taste of if say Miyake would do couture, what it would look like.
Amazing, yeah.
It's exactly what I thought. It's like taking the simple shape of a garment, which doesn't have to restrict the body like Marcella does, but actually sort of opens a new shape for the body. I think that was beautiful. Like, I imagine this type of clothing is wearable on everyday basis as long as your budget is on it. Like, I think totally, because Margiela is a very difficult one, but it's beautiful. I loved Margiela shoes as well. They're so beautiful. But yeah, I remember with fabric, because the beauty of fashion is not in a still image sometimes. It's about how clothes moves through the body. And in this collection, by layering this fabric, the fabric was alive on the body. And this is also beautiful. I don't know, do you think it's minimalism?
Yes, I think it's essential, meaning that there is that. When I say minimalism in a couture way, it was that minimalism that Alaya did with the human body when everybody was doing in the 1980s big shoulders. Sometimes Alaya did big shoulders, but his focus was always on the hips, on the body, on the femininity of the body moving, the bodycon, and also very often his dresses starts like bodycon on the top, and then they become frilly and soft on the edges. So when you walk, it acquires a movement of its own, and that was reflected here in a way that was innovative with those pieces of. But it was minimalistic because there was very few colors. It was more about draping than about adding things, and also it was not a collection. I hate when maximalism is comprised of adding things to the look, but then you remove those frills and it remains a very boring look. Here, the construction itself was interesting. Nothing was added to it. Every element that was exciting was part of how the fabric was draped or woven or sewn. It's not applied to it as sometimes even beautiful brands like Schiaparelli do, but sometimes Schiaparelli has this idea of things applied heavily to the. It's starting to be boring, to be honest. Beautiful, but boring.
I thought Schiaparelli was a bit too much, like with always multiple buckles on clothes. I thought it was over the top. And even though the heritage of Schiaparelli is always about with surrealism and strange interpretations, it didn't really do it for me this time. But interesting, something actually fashionable and sophisticated to see in fashion is refreshing. And I think we really miss this sophistication in the culture at large.
Yeah, agree. I wish literature could be as sophisticated as couture. I never thought I would say this. I thought I would always say, oh, I wish couture was as sophisticated as literature, right? Because couture never quite reached the level of Proust in literature, right? But now we reach a point where literature has gone down, and even some artists are boring, all repeating Duchamp again and again in the present. But couture is always doing what it does best, which is amazing craftsmanship, finding new ways of making clothes. So not every brand, but every now and then you've got Galliano. For God's sake, you've got Peter Moulier. A couple of years ago was Pierpaolo Piccioli at Valentino. Now it's starting to bore me, even though still beautiful. So yeah, couture is giving me what everything else in fashion is stealing from me. Couture gives it back.
And, you know, also with my recent exposure to Japanese fashion, I think we have a lot to learn from Japanese designers as well. And even though fashion wear maybe, I don't know, we can say it's a bit dark, it's quite minimal.
Yeah.
It's beautiful minimalism and craft, which is also fleeting away from us somehow. And we should really value it. And I do hope fashion will get a little bit more sophisticated and elaborate, not only on a couture level.
Yeah, it's the only problem is that if it carries on, if doing it means also increasing the price, we will get to a point. I was thinking yesterday about this, where couture will be, where pret-a-porter will be basically as expensive as entry price couture, and that shouldn't be the case. So yeah, but I hope that we'll have more. Yes.
Yeah, well, anything else? Any more observations?
Up to you.
No, I think this is the last day of January, and we hope for more bad cultural events this year. So stay with us. And until next time, Culture Gone Bad says goodbye.
Goodbye.
Regardless of how much you loved or hated this episode, now you absolutely must subscribe and leave us a comment and give us a like.
Because remember, love and hate are just one step away from each other. Until next time, Culture Gone Bad says goodbye.